I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, because what I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. My own son sent me to prison for a crime I didn't commit. He thought those 2 years would break me, that I'd come out with nothing. No money, no power, no fight left in me. He had no idea what was coming. My name is Charlotte Harper, and this is my story, Day 729. I dragged my thumbnail across the concrete wall of my cell at Dallas County Jail, adding another small vertical line to the collection I'd been making for nearly 2 years. The scraping sound echoed in the tiny space 8 feet by 10 feet of hell that had been my home since my own son put me here. Tomorrow would be day 730, exactly 2 years. The cell smelled like every prison cell probably smells industrial cleaner trying to mask sweat, desperation, and broken dreams. The air was thick and heavy even at night. Texas heat doesn't care if you're free or locked up. It pressed down on everything, making the walls feel like they were closing in. But I sat upright on my thin mattress spine, straight chin high. Even in this orange jumpsuit that hung loose on my frame, I'd lost 23 pounds since they locked me up. I carried myself like the CEO I'd been for 30 years. Some things you don't lose no matter what they take from you. My cellmate Betty Wilson watched me from her bunk. She was in her early 60s, serving time for fraud. White-collar crime like mine was supposed to be. Except I didn't commit mine. "You're doing it again," Betty said, her voice raspy from years of smoking before prison. "Doing what?" "That thing you do, sitting like you're in a boardroom instead of a cell." She sat up, her gray hair sticking out at odd angles. "Most people in here on their last day before release are bouncing off the walls. You look like you're planning a corporate takeover." I allowed myself a small smile. Maybe I am. Betty knew my story. Everyone in here did. The rich CEO who supposedly pushed her pregnant daughter-in-law down the stairs, killing the unborn grandchild. The headlines had been brutal. Wealthy businesswoman's rage kills grandchild. Dynasty destroyed by grandmother's violence. All lies. Every single word. But the truth didn't matter when my own son testified against me. I stood and walked to the small mirror above the sink. The woman staring back was different from the one who'd walked into this place 2 years ago. My dark hair, once professionally colored and styled every week at the best salon in Dallas, was now streaked with gray. I'd let it grow out, refusing to use the cheap prison hair dye. The lines around my eyes had deepened. My cheekbones were more pronounced from the weight loss. But my eyes were harder, sharper. They held something that hadn't been there before. "You know what I learned in here, Betty?" I said quietly, still looking at my reflection. "What's that?" "That when you lose everything, your freedom, your reputation, your family, you find out what you're really made of. And I found out I'm made of steel." Betty chuckled. "I believe it. I've seen women come in here and break in weeks. You got stronger." I turned away from the mirror. Tomorrow I would walk out of Dallas County Jail. And when I did, I wouldn't be the broken woman Andrew expected. I'd be something much more dangerous. A mother with nothing left to lose. 6 months into my sentence, I'd stopped hoping for appeals to work. My public defender had been overworked and underpaid, barely able to look at my case before pushing me to take a plea deal. I'd refused. I wouldn't admit to something I didn't do. That decision cost me. I closed my eyes and let myself remember the trial. Sometimes you have to relive the nightmare to fuel the fire that'll burn it all down. The courtroom had been packed. Every seat filled with reporters, curious onlookers, and people from my company, Sterling Industries, the business I'd built from nothing over 30 years. I'd started with a small inheritance from my late husband, Michael, and turned it into a $70 million empire. Now I sat at the defense table in a borrowed suit, my hands folded, watching my son take the witness stand. Andrew Harper, my firstborn, 35 years old, wearing a navy suit that probably cost $4,000, bought with my money from my company. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his face arranged in an expression of careful sorrow. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Jennifer Matthews, approached him gently. "Mr. Harper, I know this is difficult, but can you tell the court what happened on September 25th? Andrew's voice trembled. He was good. I'd give him that. "I was in my office at Sterling Industries when my mother arrived. She was angry about some financial discrepancies I'd found in the accounts. Lies. He was the one stealing. I'd found $1.5 million missing. What happened next? She confronted my wife, Delilah. They argued. My mother was furious, shouting. Then his voice broke convincingly. Then she pushed Delilah down the stairs. My wife was 7 months pregnant. I wanted to scream, to stand up and call him the liar he was. But my lawyer had warned me to stay quiet, to show no emotion. Juries don't like angry women, especially wealthy ones. The prosecutor handed Andrew a tissue. What happened to the baby? We lost him. Andrew wiped his eyes. The doctors tried, but the trauma was too much. My son died that night. The jury looked at me with disgust. I could see it in their faces. Monster. Killer. Grandmother who murdered her own grandchild. Then came Delilah. They wheeled her into the courtroom in a wheelchair pure theater. She could walk just fine, but the wheelchair sold the victim narrative. She wore a simple cream dress, her blonde hair pulled back, no makeup except what looked like natural beauty. In her lap, she clutched a small teddy bear. The teddy bear destroyed me more than her testimony. That one small touch made the jury see her as a grieving mother instead of the manipulative woman I knew she was. Mrs. Harper, the prosecutor said gently, can you tell us what happened? Delilah's voice was soft, broken. Mother Harper came to the office. She was screaming about money, about how Andrew was stealing from her. I tried to calm her down. I told her we could discuss it rationally. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. But she kept getting angrier. She pointed her finger at me and said, "You're the problem. You've turned my son against me." I'd never said those words. Never. Then what, Mom? I started feeling dizzy. The stress wasn't good for the baby. I turned to go down the stairs to get away from the confrontation. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That's when I felt her hands on my back, pushing. I tried to grab the railing, but I couldn't. I fell, and all I could think was, my baby, my baby. She broke down, sobbing. The jury ate it up. My lawyer, Daniel Freeman, a public defender who looked like he hadn't slept in a month, did his best on cross-examination. Mrs. Harper, isn't it true that you'd already lost the baby before this alleged incident? Delilah's eyes flashed just for a second. How dare you suggest, Your Honor, I have medical records that show... The prosecutor objected. The judge sustained it. Some technicality about chain of custody that I didn't understand. My evidence was thrown out. Without those medical records proving Delilah had miscarried 2 days before the fall, I had nothing. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter. 2 years in Dallas County Jail. I watched Andrew embrace Delilah as the verdict was read. And in that moment, I caught something in their faces. Not grief, not relief. Calculation. Cold, perfect calculation. That's when I knew for certain they'd planned this. All of it. And that's when I decided they would pay. 3 months into my sentence, Andrew came to visit me for the first time. The visitation room at Dallas County Jail was divided by thick plexiglass. Phones on either side to communicate. Every conversation monitored, recorded. No privacy, no warmth. Just cold separation. I sat down across from my son and picked up the phone. Andrew looked good. Too good. Prison was eating away at me while freedom was fattening him up. His face had filled out. His suit was new. He wore a Rolex I'd never seen before. Mom? His voice through the phone was carefully neutral. How are you holding up? What do you want, Andrew? He flinched at my coldness. Good. Let him see I wasn't the mother who used to make him pancakes on Sunday mornings. I wanted to see you. To talk about things. What things? The company. Sterling Industries needs access to the emergency fund. $2 million. The board requires your signature for a withdrawal that large. There it was. The real reason for his visit. I leaned forward. Let me understand this. You put me in prison for a crime I didn't commit, and now you want me to hand over $2 million? It's for the company. It's for you. I cut him off. You've been stealing from Sterling Industries for over a year. That's why I came to your office that day. I'd found the discrepancies. $1.5 million missing from various accounts. Andrew's jaw tightened. That was business diversification. That was embezzlement. And when I threatened to call the FBI, you and your wife cooked up this whole scheme to get rid of me. You're paranoid. Prison is making you... I know what I saw, Andrew. Delilah threw herself down those stairs. I saw her look at you right before she did it. You gave her some kind of signal. For just a moment, Andrew's mask slipped. Guilt flashed across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold anger. Sign the papers, Mother. The company needs it. No. Then you'll sit in here with nothing. I've frozen your personal accounts, filed emergency power of attorney claiming you're mentally incompetent. You have no access to money, no way to hire better lawyers. You're stuck." My hands trembled. I gripped the phone tighter to hide it. "You'd really do this, destroy your own mother." Andrew stood up. "You destroyed yourself when you couldn't control your temper. Sign the papers or rot in here. Your choice." He hung up the phone and walked away. I sat there for a long moment watching his back disappear through the security doors. Other inmates around me were talking, crying, laughing with their visitors. The guard called "Time's up," and people started leaving. But I stayed sitting there, phone still pressed to my ear, even though the line was dead. Because something Andrew said had given me an idea. He thought he'd trapped me. Thought I had no power, no resources, no way to fight back. He was wrong. I had something he'd forgotten about. When Grace walked into the visitation room 2 weeks later, I almost didn't recognize her emotional mask. My daughter was 29, brilliant, and looked exactly like her father. Dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, navy pantsuit that screamed corporate professional. Her face was carefully blank as she sat down and picked up the phone. "Mom," her voice was cold, flat, nothing like the warm, loving daughter who used to call me every day. My heart sank. Had Andrew gotten to her too, Grace, sweetheart? "I didn't come here to chat." Her tone was sharp. "Andrew sent me. He wants you to sign the power of attorney papers. He said you refused when he asked." I felt something inside me crumble. Not Andrew and Grace. Not both my children. "Grace, please. You have to know I didn't. I don't want to hear it." She pulled out a folder. Inside were legal documents. "Just sign these. It's for the best. The company is suffering with you in here. Andrew's doing his best, but without access to the emergency funds." "He's stealing from Sterling Industries," I said desperately. "That's why I went to his office. I found evidence of embezzlement." "Mom, stop." Grace's voice was ice. "You're not making this easier. Just cooperate. Sign the papers. Let Andrew run the company. When you get out, maybe we can revisit things." I stared at my daughter, searching her face for any sign of the girl I'd raised. The one who used to bring me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day. The one who'd cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. She looked back at me with empty eyes. Then something happened. Grace's hand moved. Just slightly. Her finger traced something on the table between us where the guard couldn't see. Letters. TRUSTME. My breath caught. I looked up at her face. Still cold. Still blank. But her eyes, for just a fraction of a second, her eyes softened. Pleaded. She was playing a part. I nearly cried with relief. Instead, I kept my face neutral and said loudly, "I'm not signing anything." Grace's expression hardened again. "Fine. I tried to help you. I told Andrew you'd be difficult." She stood up. "Goodbye, Mother." "Not see you next month." "Goodbye." She hung up the phone and walked away, her heels clicking sharply on the linoleum floor. But I'd seen the truth. Grace was on my side. She was gathering evidence, playing along with Andrew's game while building a case against him. My brilliant daughter. I returned to my cell that night with the first real hope I'd felt in months. Betty looked up from her book. "Your daughter visited, yes. She give you a hard time like your son did." I smiled. "Something like that." Betty studied my face. "You're smiling, that's new." "I just realized something, Betty. I'm not alone in this fight." "No." "No, I have an ally on the outside. Someone Andrew trusts. Someone he'll never suspect." I lay down on my bunk and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd start planning in earnest. I needed to understand how it all went wrong. Lying in my cell at night, I replayed the past like a movie I couldn't turn off. 2.5 years before prison. Before the betrayal. Before everything fell apart. I was in the Sterling Industries boardroom on the 40th floor of Caldwell Plaza in downtown Dallas. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city I loved. My city. My company. 8 board members sat around the table. Andrew sat at my right hand where he'd been for 3 years as chief operating officer. I'd been grooming him to take over eventually. Maybe in 5 more years when I turned 70 and wanted to slow down. The third quarter numbers are concerning, I said, pulling up a spreadsheet on the main screen. "We're showing a $1.5 million discrepancy in operational expenses." Andrew shifted in his chair. "Mother, I can explain." "Can you?" I looked at him directly. Because I've been going through the accounts myself. There are transfers to shell companies I've never heard of. Lux Consulting LLC. Ever heard of them? The room went silent. That's a legitimate vendor. No, it's not. I called them. The address is a P.O. box. The phone number goes to voicemail. And when I traced the business registration, do you know whose name I found? Andrew's face went pale. I can explain. Delilah's. I stood up. Your wife owns Lux Consulting. You've been funneling company money to a shell corporation controlled by your wife. Richard Garrett, one of our founding board members, spoke up. Charlotte, are you certain about this? I have the documentation. 1.5 million over 18 months. Small amounts cleverly hidden in legitimate expenses. But it's there. I turned to Andrew. You have 48 hours to return that money. All of it. Or I'm calling the FBI. Andrew stood abruptly. You'd destroy your own son over money. I'd save my company over theft. There's a difference. You've never thought I was good enough. His voice shook with rage. Dad's dead 8 years, and you still compare me to him. Michael would have done it better. Michael wouldn't have made this mistake. The accusation stung because it held truth. I had compared them. Not intentionally, but Andrew had always been sensitive about living up to his father's legacy. This isn't about your father. Everything is about Dad, Andrew shouted. I've spent my whole life trying to be him and failing. And now you want to send me to prison because I'm not perfect like he was. I want you to return money you stole. It wasn't stealing. It was compensation for being undervalued, for years of being paid less than I'm worth, because you're afraid I'll take over and ruin your precious company. Andrew, that's not 48 hours. He laughed bitterly. I don't need 48 hours. I quit. Effective immediately. He stormed out of the boardroom. I stood there shaking. The board members avoided my eyes. Meeting adjourned, I said quietly. That night I called Grace. She was living in Boston at the time, working for a consulting firm. Mom, it's late. Is everything okay? I told her everything. The embezzlement, the confrontation, Andrew quitting. Grace was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I don't know. He's my son. I don't want to destroy him, but he stole from the company. Did you really compare him to Dad? I sighed. Not intentionally, but I know Andrew's always felt like he couldn't measure up. Mom, you did your best raising us. But Andrew, he's always had this chip on his shoulder, like the world owes him something, and Delilah feeds that. You don't like her. I think she sees Andrew as a meal ticket. She grew up poor. I'm not judging that lots of people struggle financially, but she's obsessed with wealth and status in an unhealthy way. When she looks at you, she doesn't see her mother-in-law. She sees an obstacle to Andrew's inheritance. That's a harsh assessment. It's the truth. Be careful, Mom. I don't trust her. I should have listened September 25th, the day my life ended. I arrived at Sterling Industries at 2 in the afternoon. I'd spent the previous night going over the accounts again, finding even more discrepancies. The total was now closer to $3 million. Andrew hadn't returned anything, hadn't even called. I had the evidence in a folder. I was going to his office one more time, give him a final chance before I called the authorities. Andrew's assistant, a young woman named Melissa, looked nervous when I approached. Mrs. Harper, he's in a meeting. I walked past her and opened Andrew's door. He was on the phone, feet up on his desk, laughing, wearing jeans and a polo shirt instead of business attire, looking relaxed like he hadn't just stolen $3 million. He saw me and his face hardened. I'll call you back. He hung up. What do you want, Sin? I want you to return the money, all $3 million. $3 million last week, it was 1.5. I kept digging. You've been stealing for longer than I thought. I put the folder on his desk. It's all documented. Every transfer, every fake invoice, every shell company. I'm giving you one last chance. Return it by tomorrow, or I'm calling the FBI. Andrew stood slowly. You're really going to do this? You gave me no choice. I'm your son. And this is my company. The company your father and I built. The company I've spent 30 years growing. I won't let you destroy it because you feel entitled to money you didn't earn. The office door burst open. Delilah stood there 7 months pregnant, her face flushed. She was wearing designer maternity clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. How dare you threaten him? She screamed. Delilah, this is between Andrew and me. No, you want to destroy the father of your grandchild. You want to send him to prison." She moved toward me, her hands shaking. "You've never accepted me, never thought I was good enough for your precious son." "This has nothing to do with you. Everything has to do with me. I'm his wife, I'm carrying his baby, and you want to take him away from us?" I took a step back, hands up trying to calm her. "Delilah, please, just let Andrew and me discuss this. Don't come near me." Delilah's eyes locked with Andrew's across the room. Something passed between them, some signal I couldn't read. Then Delilah took a step backward. My mind registered what was happening half a second before it did. "No," I started to say. Delilah threw herself backward down the stairs outside Andrew's office. The sound was horrible, her body hitting each step, her screaming all the way down, the sickening thud when she reached the bottom. I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, my hands still extended from trying to calm her down. In any security footage, it would look exactly like I'd pushed her. Andrew ran past me. "What did you do?" "I didn't. She threw herself as security." Andrew's voice echoed through the building. "My mother just pushed my pregnant wife down the stairs." I looked down at Delilah, crumpled at the bottom. She was crying, cradling her stomach. But for just a second before Andrew reached her, I saw her face. She looked up at me and smiled. The hospital. Mercy General Dallas. Sterile white walls and the smell of antiseptic. Delilah lay in a bed, Andrew holding her hand. I stood in the corner, 2 security guards watching me like I might attack someone else. A doctor in blue scrubs emerged from the trauma bay. His face was grave. "Mr. Harper, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but the baby didn't make it. The trauma was too severe." Andrew's scream was animal-like. He collapsed against the bed, sobbing. Delilah's face crumpled. She reached for Andrew and they held each other, crying. I wanted to go to them, to comfort my son even though he'd just orchestrated my destruction. But the security guards blocked me. "Andrew," I said. My voice came out as a whisper. "Andrew, please. She threw herself. You have to know that. I would never—" Andrew lifted his head. His eyes were red face, wet with tears. "Get away from me." "Andrew, I swear on your father's grave. My father would be ashamed of you." Each word was a bullet. "You killed my son. You killed your own grandchild because you couldn't let go of money. That's not true. I saw you!" His voice rose to a scream. "You were standing at the top of the stairs with your hands on her. I saw you push her." "No." She stepped back. "She looked at you first. You gave her some kind of signal." But even as I said it, I knew how it sounded. Paranoid. Crazy. Like a woman desperate to avoid responsibility. The police arrived 20 minutes later. "Charlotte Harper," I turned. "You're under arrest for involuntary manslaughter. You have the right to remain silent." They put handcuffs on me in the hospital hallway, walked me past nurses and patients who stared, past Delilah's room where I could hear Andrew's sobs, past the life I'd known, into hell. The first month in Dallas County Jail almost broke me. I'd gone from a king-sized bed in my Highland Park mansion to a thin mattress in a cell that smelled like decades of despair. From designer clothes to orange jumpsuits. From running a $70 million company to wondering if I'd get a full meal. The other inmates tested me immediately. "Rich bitch," one woman spat the first day in the common area. "Think you're better than us." I was sitting at a table trying to eat something that was supposed to be meatloaf but looked like cardboard. The woman her name tag said Harris came over and deliberately knocked my tray onto the floor. I stood slowly. Every instinct told me to back down, to apologize, to make myself small. But I'd spent 30 years in boardrooms full of men who wanted me to fail. I'd faced down hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, and competitors who thought a woman couldn't run a tech company. I wasn't going to be intimidated by someone in an orange jumpsuit. I looked Harris in the eye. I built a $70 million company from nothing. I survived my husband's death and raised 2 children alone. I've been in rooms where men twice my size tried to destroy me, and I made them respect me. Do you really think a knocked-over tray is going to break me? Harris blinked. The common room had gone quiet. "You can test me if you want," I continued quietly. "But I don't have anything to lose anymore. My son took everything. My freedom, my reputation, my family. So ask yourself, do you really want to fight someone who has nothing left to fear?" Harris stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed. "Aight, I can respect that." She bent down and picked up my tray. You got spine. I like spine. She walked away. Betty appeared at my side. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. I sat back down, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Probably stupid. Nah, Harris respects strength. You just earned yourself some protection. And she was right. After that day, the other inmates left me alone. Some even started coming to me for advice about their cases, their families, their lives after prison. I helped when I could. Prison gave me something I hadn't had in years' time to think. I spent every spare moment in the prison library. It was small, just one room with outdated books and 2 ancient computers with limited internet access. But it was enough. I studied corporate law, hostile takeovers, forensic accounting, everything I'd need to understand what Andrew was doing to my company. Betty introduced me to Samantha Price, a woman serving time for white-collar crime. She'd been a forensic accountant before she got caught embezzling from her employer. Ironic, right? Samantha laughed. She was in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes behind thick glasses. I was so good at finding other people's crimes that I thought I could hide my own. Can you teach me? I asked. Teach you what? How to trace money, how to find hidden accounts, how to build an ironclad case against someone who's stealing. Samantha studied me. This about your son? Yes. You think you can take him down from in here? No, but I can prepare. So when I get out, I'll be ready. She smiled. I like you. Yeah, I'll teach you. For the next 18 months, Samantha taught me everything she knew. How to follow money trails through shell corporations. How to spot fake invoices. How to build documentation that would hold up in court. I became an expert in corporate fraud, all thanks to a prison education. Grace visited once a month, always on the 3rd Thursday. Each visit followed the same pattern. She'd sit down, speak coldly about how I needed to cooperate, how Andrew was doing his best with the company. And each visit she'd leave me a coded message. Sometimes it was traced on the table, sometimes written in condensed letters on documents she brought. Once it was spelled out in the first letter of each sentence she spoke. Month 3, evidence building. Month 6, found lawyer. Month 9, Marcus Reed ready. Month 12, 6 more months. Month 15, Delilah medical records located. Each message gave me hope. Grace was out there fighting for me in ways Andrew could never suspect. In month 18, she brought a file marked Sterling Industries Financial Review. Andrew had sent it wanting me to sign off on some accounting procedures. I pretended to read it while Grace sat across from me, her face blank. Hidden in page 43 in tiny print in the margin was a phone number. When I got back to my cell, I memorized it. Then I asked Betty for a favor. Betty had connections, ways to get things done that I didn't ask too many questions about. 3 days later, Betty handed me a piece of paper. Your girl's smart. Real smart. The paper had a message from Grace. Marcus Reed retained. 6 months until your release. Evidence collected shell companies $4.2M total bribes to Judge Morrison, $75K payments to security technician, $50K. Medical records. Delilah miscarried. Sept 23 fall was Sept 25. Grace has recordings of Andrew admitting to embezzlement. Everything is ready. Stay strong, Mom. We're going to destroy him. G. I read it 3 times. Then I ate the paper, letting it dissolve in my mouth like Betty had instructed. 4.2 million. He'd stolen even more than I thought. Bribes to the judge. That's how he'd gotten my evidence thrown out. And the medical records. Proof that Delilah's baby had already died before the fall. Proof that the entire trial was based on a lie. Grace had everything. All I had to do was survive 6 more months. I could do that standing on my head. 22 months into my sentence, Andrew came to visit again. He looked terrible. Thinner than before. Dark circles under his eyes. His suit was expensive, but rumpled. Mom. He picked up the phone. I picked up mine, but said nothing. I need you to sign something. It's important. No. You don't even know what it is. I don't care. The answer is no. Andrew's jaw clenched. The company is in trouble. We need to access the emergency trust fund, $5 million. It requires your biometric authorization, fingerprint, and facial recognition at the bank. No. Mom, please. If we don't get this money, Sterling Industries could go bankrupt. 30 years of Dad's work, your work gone. I leaned forward. Tell me, Andrew, Where did the 4.2 million you already stole go? He went pale. I don't know what. Yes, you do. I've had 2 years to study forensic accounting. I know about every shell company, every fake invoice, every fraudulent transfer. So where did it go? Business investments, Delilah's shopping habit, your new cars, the house you bought in the Hamptons. How do you… He stopped himself. I'm not as powerless as you think. Andrew slammed his hand on the plexiglass. Sign the damn papers or I'll make sure you never see your grandchildren. Delilah and I are trying again. We're going to have a family. And you'll never be part of it. I felt a pang at that, the idea of grandchildren I'd never meet, but I pushed it down. Goodbye, Andrew. I hung up the phone and walked away. Behind the glass, Andrew was shouting, but I couldn't hear him anymore. I didn't day 729, my last night in prison. Betty and I sat on our bunks talking quietly. The lights were off, but neither of us could sleep. What's the first thing you're going to do when you get out? Betty asked. Take a shower that lasts more than 5 minutes. Betty laughed. Fair. What about after that? Start the war. You really think your daughter has everything? I know she does. Grace has been preparing for 2 years. She's brilliant, patient, and absolutely ruthless when she needs to be. She got that from me. What about your son? I was quiet for a moment. Andrew made his choice. He chose money over family, greed over love, and now he's going to learn what happens when you underestimate a mother's love for her daughter. You still love him, even after what he did. Part of me will always love him. He's my son. But love doesn't mean I'll let him destroy everything I built. Love doesn't mean I won't hold him accountable. Betty was quiet. Then, you're going to be okay out there. You know that? I know. And when you rebuild your empire, don't forget about us in here. Some of us made mistakes, but we're not all bad people. I thought about the women I'd met over 2 years. Harris, who'd assaulted someone but was taking anger management classes and trying to change. Samantha, who'd taught me everything she knew and showed genuine remorse for her crimes. Betty, who'd defrauded investors but spent every day helping other inmates with their legal cases. I won't forget, I promised. When I get Sterling Industries back, I'm creating a program, job training and placement for women coming out of incarceration. Second chances for people who deserve them. You're a good person, Charlotte Harper. I'm a person who learned hard lessons about judging people by their worst moments instead of their potential for growth. We sat in comfortable silence. Tomorrow I would walk out of this place, and the real fight would begin. September 15th, day 7:30. I woke before the sunrise. My last morning in Dallas County Jail. The sky outside our small window was turning from black to deep purple. Texas sunrise coming. I stood and walked to the window, pressing my palm against the cool glass. Morning? Betty mumbled from her bunk. Morning. How you feeling? Like I'm about to walk into a battle. You nervous? I considered that. No. Nervous implies uncertainty. I know exactly what's coming. Andrew will be at the gates with Delilah staging some kind of reconciliation for the cameras. They'll expect me to be broken, grateful, willing to sign over everything to keep the peace. And instead they're going to meet a woman they don't know anymore. The Charlotte Harper who went into this prison was a mother who loved her son more than her pride. The woman walking out is someone different. Betty sat up. Who is she? I turned from the window. A warrior who's done playing nice. The morning routine was the same as always. Breakfast in the common area, runny eggs and toast that tasted like cardboard. But I ate every bite. I'd need my strength. At 9 a.m., Officer Martinez appeared at my cell. Harper, you're up. Discharge processing. This was it. I followed Martinez down corridors I'd walked 1,000 times, past the common room where Harris was playing cards. She looked up and nodded. I nodded back. Past the library where Samantha was helping another inmate with her case. She smiled and mouthed, "Good luck." Past the administrative offices where I'd filed countless grievances appeals requests, into the discharge processing room. They gave me back my personal belongings. The clothes I'd worn the day I was arrested, a simple white blouse and black pants that hung loose on my frame now. My phone long dead. My wallet with $43 and my credit cards that Andrew had probably canceled. And one item I'd forgotten about. My wedding ring. I'd removed it before the trial, knowing they'd take it in prison. It sat in a small plastic bag, the diamond catching the fluorescent light. Michael's ring. We'd been married 30 years before he died. He'd been my partner in business and in life. I slipped it on my finger. It was loose. I'd lost weight from my hands, too. "Michael," I whispered, "I'm about to go to war with our son. I hope you understand." I felt absurdly like the ring got warmer, like Michael was saying, "Do what you have to do." "Harper, sign here." I signed the discharge papers. "You're free to go." I walked through Dallas County Jail's main gates at 10:47 a.m. The September sun hit me like a physical force. After 2 years of fluorescent lights and limited outdoor time, the brightness was overwhelming. I stopped, closed my eyes, tilted my face up. This was freedom. This was sunlight without bars, air, without the smell of industrial cleaner and despair. This was the beginning of everything. "Mrs. Harper." I opened my eyes. The parking lot was packed. At least 20 reporters with cameras and microphones. They surged forward shouting questions. "Mrs. Harper, how do you feel? Do you have any statement about your conviction? What are your plans now?" And there in the center of it all, positioned perfectly for maximum camera coverage, stood Andrew and Delilah. Andrew wore a navy suit that probably cost $4,000. His hair was perfectly styled. His face arranged in careful remorse. Delilah stood beside him in a cream-colored dress holding a bouquet of white roses. Her blonde hair was styled in soft waves. She looked like an angel. They both looked healthy, well-fed, happy. While I'd been losing weight in prison, they'd been living in my house, spending my money, running my company into the ground. The rage that flooded through me was so intense I had to stop walking. "Mom!" Andrew's voice carried across the parking lot loud enough for every microphone to catch. "Welcome back. We're here for you. We're family." He started walking toward me, Delilah at his side, the roses extended. I stood perfectly still. Every instinct told me to scream, to tell these reporters what he'd done, to call him the lying, thieving traitor he was. But I'd learned patience in prison. I'd learned to play the long game. So I did something Andrew didn't expect. I walked forward, not toward him, past him, not around him like he was an obstacle to avoid, but past him like he was furniture, like he was part of the parking lot scenery, not worth acknowledging. "Mom!" Andrew's voice changed a note of panic entering. His hand shot out and grabbed my arm. "Wait, don't make a scene. Get in the car. We can talk work everything out." I stopped, slowly turned my head, looked at his hand gripping my arm. The cameras were rolling, recording everything. "Let go of me," I said quietly, each word measured controlled. "Or I will scream that you're assaulting me in front of all these cameras and their witnesses." Andrew's hand dropped like I'd burned him. I resumed walking. Behind me, Delilah's voice rose, the carefully maintained facade cracking. "She's completely insane. 2 years in prison destroyed her mind. She needs help." A deep, powerful engine cut her off. Every head turned. A black Bentley Continental GT glided into the parking lot like a predator, chrome gleaming in the sunlight. Windows tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. The license plate read Mercury-eyed. Every camera swung toward it. The driver's door opened, and Marcus Reed stepped out. The man who stepped out of that Bentley looked like he'd walked off the cover of a legal magazine. Late 30s, athletic build in a charcoal 3-piece suit that screamed money and power. Dark hair precisely cut. Intelligent eyes behind rimless glasses that caught the sunlight. He moved with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from winning cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. Marcus Reed, Harvard Law School top of his class. The attorney who'd won the impossible Thornton case last year, getting a wrongfully convicted man released after 15 years and securing a $12 million settlement from the state. Andrew had tried to hire him last year for a corporate lawsuit. Marcus had refused without explanation. Now I knew why. Marcus walked directly to me, ignoring the reporters, ignoring Andrew's shock, ignoring Delilah's dropped jaw. His eyes were only on me, his client. "Mrs. Harper." His voice was clear, respectful, with just the right amount of warmth. "Everything is ready, ma'am." I shook his hand once firmly. "Mr. Reed." He opened the rear door of the Bentley with a slight bow. Professional, but not servile. I paused, turned back to Andrew and Delilah one more time. They stood frozen, the white roses wilting in Delilah's hands, their mouths slightly open, their carefully planned reconciliation scene collapsing like a house of cards. I didn't smile. didn't gloat, just looked at them. Let them see that something fundamental had changed, that the woman who went into prison wasn't the woman walking out. Then I slid into the Bentley. The leather interior embraced me. New car smell mixed with subtle cologne, the scent of money and power. The door closed with a solid thunk like a vault locking. Outside, chaos erupted. "Mr. Harper." Reporters swarmed Andrew like sharks sensing blood. "Who picked up your mother? Why didn't she go with you? Is the reconciliation canceled?" Through the tinted windows, I watched Andrew's face cycle through emotions in rapid succession. Confusion. How did she get a lawyer? Pale shock. That's Marcus Reed. He refused to work for me. Then burning red anger. She planned this. She's been planning from inside. Delilah grabbed Andrew's arm, her composure shattering. "You said he refused us. You said your mother had nothing left. No money, no connections, no way to fight back." Andrew's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Marcus slid into the driver's seat. The engine purred to life, powerful, controlled, dangerous. "Where to, ma'am?" He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I leaned back against the leather, closing my eyes. My first truly free breath in 2 years. Outside, Andrew was shouting something. Reporters were chasing him. Cameras flashing. I smiled. Cold as a Texas winter night. "The Ritz-Carlton, Mr. Reed. I need to wash their touch off me. Then we begin the war." The Ritz-Carlton penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor of their downtown Dallas tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city stretching to the horizon in every direction. My city, the one I'd helped build with my company, my investments, my 3 decades of work. Marcus handed me a key card. "The suite is yours for as long as you need it. Paid in full. Grace's instructions." My daughter thinks of everything. She learned from the best. I walked through the penthouse in a daze. Living room with leather furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. Kitchen with marble countertops and appliances I couldn't even name. Bedroom with a king-sized bed that looked like heaven after 2 years on a prison cot. But the bathroom stopped me in my tracks. Marble everywhere, gold fixtures, a shower with 6 heads, a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. I turned on the shower, made the water as hot as I could stand it. Then I stripped off the clothes I'd worn into prison 2 years ago and stepped under the spray. The water hit like baptism, like redemption, like washing away 2 years of hell. I scrubbed with the hotel's expensive soap cedar and bergamot, nothing like the harsh carbolic soap in prison. Scrubbed my skin until it turned red. Scrubbed my hair 3 times. Let the hot water pound against my shoulders until the bathroom was thick with steam. And then finally the tears came. Not from weakness, not from self-pity, from rage, from grief, from 2 years of holding everything inside because showing emotion in prison was showing vulnerability. I braced against the marble wall and let myself break apart. Cried for the woman who'd trusted her son. Cried for the grandmother who'd never meet her grandchildren. Cried for 30 years of building something beautiful, only to watch her own child try to destroy it. The water washed my tears away as fast as they fell. When I finally emerged wrapped in a plush hotel robe, I felt different. Lighter, cleaner, ready. I walked into the living room. Marcus stood by the windows talking quietly on his phone. When he saw me, he ended the call. "Feel better?" "Like I'm human again." "Good, because we have company." The penthouse door opened. A woman walked in, past 60 with short silver hair cut in a sharp professional style. Charcoal pantsuit. Plain watch. The kind of woman who didn't need designer labels to command a room. Her eyes were what caught me. Sharp, intelligent, carrying the weight of experience and pain. "Charlotte Harper." She extended her hand. "Beatrice Walsh. I've been looking forward to meeting you." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, her palm calloused. This was a woman who'd worked hard for everything she had. "Marcus said you were the best defense attorney in Texas." "I was." A slight smile. "Before they made me a scapegoat for corporate corruption. 5 years in federal prison for refusing to betray my client." My breath caught. "You were wrongfully convicted, too." "Wrongfully is a strong word. I broke rules, bent laws trying to protect someone I believed in. But the sentence was meant to send a message, don't cross powerful men." She sat in one of the leather chairs. "I was released 6 months ago. Marcus was my student at Harvard before law school. He told me about your case. And you want to help. I want to destroy corrupt bastards who use the legal system as a weapon. Your son qualifies. Her eyes glinted. Plus, I have a personal interest. My daughter stopped speaking to me when I went to prison. Said I embarrassed the family. I know what it's like when your children turn on you. Marcus gestured to the coffee table. It was covered in documents, laptops, file folders. We should get started. We need to move fast strike while Andrew's off balance. I sat down, tightening the belt on my robe. Show me everything. Marcus laid out the first document. Power of attorney revocation. Andrew had you declared mentally incompetent to get control of Sterling Industries. This revokes that declaration and reactivates your 70% shareholder status. I read through it quickly. Legal language I'd learned to understand during my prison education. I signed without hesitation. My signature was shaky from emotion, not doubt. Next, Marcus pulled up another document. Emergency forensic audit. This immediately freezes all Sterling Industries accounts until the audit is complete. Andrew can't move. Money can't write checks. Can't access funds without board approval. How long will the audit take? Minimum 30 days. Longer if we find irregularities. You'll find them, I said grimly. Andrew's been bleeding the company dry for over 2 years. Beatrice leaned forward. Your daughter sent this. She handed me a manila envelope. No return address. Just one letter written in the corner. Gee, my hand trembled as I opened it. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note on plain paper. Grace's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. 2 years of work. Everything you need. Trust Marcus and Beatrice. They're good people. I love you, Mom. Let's destroy him. Gee. Marcus plugged the flash drive into his laptop. The screen filled with files, spreadsheets, bank records, email chains, photographs, audio recordings. Grace has been documenting everything since the day you were convicted, Marcus said quietly. Every transaction Andrew made, every shell company he created, every fake invoice, every fraudulent expense report, every penny he stole. I scrolled through the files, my heart pounding. Lux Consulting LLC registration, PDF. Owned by Delilah Incorporated 3 days after my conviction. Shell Company transfers, 2022-2024. XLSX, $4.2 million funneled through 5 different fake companies. Judge Morrison payment records. PDF, $75,000 paid to Judge Morrison's offshore account 2 weeks before my trial. Security Tech Bribe.pdf, $50,000 paid to James Mitchell, the security technician who lost the footage showing Delilah stepping backward. And then the file that made my blood run cold, Delilah Medical Records, Mercy General. PDF, I opened it with shaking hands. Mercy General Hospital, Dallas, Texas. Patient Delilah Morrison Harper, date, September 23, 2024, 11:45 p.m. Diagnosis: spontaneous incomplete abortion, secondary to DNP, 2,4-dinitrophenol toxicity. Emergency DNC performed. Notes: patient presented with severe cramping and vaginal bleeding. Toxicology screen positive for DNP, an illegal fat-burning agent. Patient admitted to taking diet pills purchased online. Fetus non-viable. Patient advised DNP is extremely dangerous and potentially fatal. September 23rd. Delilah's fall in my office was September 25th. 2 days later. The baby was already dead when she threw herself down those stairs. I couldn't breathe. The room swam. Charlotte, Beatrice's voice seemed far away. She lied. My voice was a whisper. The baby was already dead. She killed it herself with illegal diet pills. Then she blamed me. Yes, Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. And Andrew knew. Grace has recordings of him admitting it to Delilah. He knew the baby was dead before the fall. They staged the whole thing to frame you. The rage that filled me was so pure, so complete, that for a moment I couldn't speak. My son, my firstborn, the baby I'd held in my arms 35 years ago. The child I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for. He'd knowingly sent me to prison for a crime that never happened. For a baby that was already dead. For money. Destroy him. The words came out cold. Final. I want Andrew to lose everything. Every account frozen. Every asset seized. I want him to feel what it's like to have nothing. Marcus nodded. The forensic audit goes into effect the moment I file these papers with the court. Within 2 hours, every Sterling Industries account will be locked, corporate and personal. His credit cards, declined immediately. His salary, suspended pending audit results. The mansion, it's in your name, premarital asset. We can file eviction papers today. I looked at Beatrice. Is this legal? Every bit of it. You're the rightful owner of Sterling Industries. You have every right to protect your assets from theft. Andrew's been living on your money in your house, running your company into the ground. We're just taking back what's yours. I stood and walked to the windows. Dallas spread out below me. Somewhere out there, Andrew was probably celebrating, thinking he'd won, thinking his broken mother would crawl back to him begging for scraps. He had no idea what was coming. Do it, I said. All of it. I want the paperwork filed within the hour. There's one more thing. Marcus pulled up a photograph on his laptop. It showed Andrew and Delilah at Sterling's Steakhouse, the most expensive restaurant in Dallas. They were laughing, toasting champagne, looking happy and carefree. The date stamp said yesterday. While I was spending my last night in a prison cell, they were celebrating at a 5-star restaurant. Marcus turned the photo over. On the back, in Grace's handwriting, let them enjoy their last supper. At 4:47 p.m., Marcus's phone rang. He looked at the screen and smiled. It's starting. He put it on speaker. Marcus Reed. Mr. Reed, this is Gerald Thompson, CFO of Sterling Industries. I just received notification from the SEC that all our accounts have been frozen pending an emergency audit. Do you know anything about this? I filed the paperwork this afternoon on behalf of Charlotte Harper, the majority shareholder and rightful chairman of Sterling Industries. Silence. Then Charlotte Harper, but she was released this morning and she's exercised her right to investigate financial irregularities that occurred during her incarceration. Does Andrew know? He will shortly. All corporate accounts are locked, all executive salaries suspended, all company credit cards canceled. Nothing moves until the audit clears. My God. Gerald's voice was barely a whisper. How long? Minimum 30 days. Could be longer. We found evidence of substantial embezzlement, wire fraud, and corporate malfeasance. Mr. Harper is the primary suspect. I had no idea. That's what we're here to find out, Mr. Thompson, whether you had an idea or not. I suggest you retain legal counsel. Marcus hung up. I felt a savage satisfaction. How long before Andrew finds out? I'd say Marcus checked his watch. About 3 minutes. He'll try to use his corporate card. 3 miles away, Andrew Harper sat in Sterling's Steakhouse with Delilah and Richard and Patricia Morrison, potential investors he'd been courting for months. He needed their $15 million to cover the holes in Sterling Industries' finances, the holes he'd created by stealing from his own mother's company. Your mother looked well today, Patricia said, carefully sipping her wine. For someone just out of prison. Andrew forced a smile. She's been through a lot. 2 years in that place affected her mentally, but Delilah and I are committed to helping her adjust. We've hired the best therapists. Delilah added her hand on Andrew's arm. The picture of a devoted wife. Charlotte needs support, not judgment. Andrew's phone buzzed. A text from Gerald Thompson. Call me immediately. Emergency. He ignored it. Gerald was always dramatic about something. The waiter appeared with their bill. $850, but worth it to secure $15 million in investment. Andrew pulled out his corporate black card and handed it over casually. Keep the change. The waiter swiped it at the table. Beep. Declined. Andrew's stomach dropped. The waiter frowned. Let me try again, sir. Beep. Declined. Patricia and Richard exchanged glances. Must be a glitch in the system. Andrew's laugh sounded hollow even to his own ears. Delilah, use yours. Delilah fumbled for her wallet, pulled out her supplementary card, same account as Andrew's. The waiter swiped it. Beep. Declined. Heavy silence fell over the table. I'll call the bank. Andrew stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. Everyone in the restaurant turned to look. Excuse me. He walked toward the entrance phone pressed to his ear. His hands were shaking. Gerald answered on the first ring. Andrew, thank God. Where have you been? All the accounts are frozen. Every single one. SEC emergency order at 4 p.m. The restaurant blurred around Andrew. What on whose authority? Your mother's. Charlotte reactivated her majority shareholder status. She's filed for an emergency forensic audit. The board sided with her, Andrew. They still see her as the founder. You were just managing while she was away. I'm the CEO. Your appointment was based on power of attorney, which she revoked. Legally, she never stopped being chairman. The board trusts her more than you. Andrew's world was tilting. He grabbed a wall for support. What about the accounts, my salary? Everything's frozen. Nothing moves until the audit clears. The $2 million you tried to withdraw this morning canceled, flagged as suspicious. How long? 30 days minimum. Could be months if they find irregularities. When they find irregularities, Andrew thought, because there were 4.2 million reasons to find irregularities. Andrew, there's one more thing. Turn on the TV. Andrew looked wildly around the restaurant. There was a flat screen behind the bar tuned to CNBC. His blood turned to ice. His mother stood at a podium, Sterling Industries logo behind her. She wore an expensive gray suit, not the prison clothes she'd been wearing this morning. Her hair was styled. She looked healthy, strong, powerful, angry. The caption read, Charlotte Harper announces, return to Sterling Industries. I, Charlotte Harper, as rightful owner and chairman, announce complete management restructuring effective immediately. Her voice was clear, strong, nothing like the broken woman Andrew had expected to see. While I was wrongfully imprisoned, massive financial irregularities occurred. Funds were diverted. Projects were mismanaged. Trust was violated. Over $4 million stolen from the company I built. She looked directly at the camera. Those eyes seemed to bore straight through the screen into Andrew's soul. Legal action will be taken against all responsible parties. Criminal charges will be filed. This company will be cleaned from top to bottom, and anyone who participated in these crimes will be held accountable. The screen cut to reporters asking questions as Charlotte walked away, flanked by two people Andrew didn't recognize. A man in an expensive suit, a woman with silver hair, her legal team. The restaurant seemed to spin. Every eye was on him now. Patricia showed Richard something on her phone, probably the news about the accounts being frozen. The waiter still held the bill. $850, unpaid. Delilah appeared at his side, hissing. Andrew, people are staring. What's happening? Andrew couldn't speak. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He answered with shaking hands. Mr. Harper, a professional male voice. This is Marcus Reed, attorney for Charlotte Harper. I'm calling to inform you that eviction proceedings have been initiated for the Highland Park property. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. You can't, that's my home. It's your mother's home. Premarital asset registered solely in her name. You've been living there without legal right. You'll find the formal eviction notice has been emailed to you. I'm her son. That's a family matter, Mr. Harper. Legally, you're a trespasser. 72 hours. The line went dead. Andrew stared at his phone. Then it buzzed again. Another text. Unknown number. Enjoy your last supper. G. Grace, his sister. She'd been working with their mother all along. Andrew stumbled back to the table. Patricia and Richard were already standing, gathering their things. We'll be in touch, Richard said stiffly. Translation, don't call us. They left quickly, not looking back. Delilah grabbed Andrew's arm. What did they say, Andrew? Talk to me. We're done. Andrew's voice was hollow. We're completely done. The waiter cleared his throat. Sir, the bill? Andrew looked at him, at the unpaid bill, at his useless credit cards. He had $180 in his wallet. That was it. I'll need to get cash from an ATM. We don't accept cash for bills over $500, sir. Credit card only. Andrew pulled out his personal credit card. Not the corporate one, his own account. The waiter swiped it. Beep, declined. There must be a mistake, but Andrew knew there wasn't. His personal accounts were linked to Sterling Industries. If the corporate accounts were frozen, his were too. Everything was frozen. He had nothing. The maitre d' appeared. Sir, is there a problem? Around them, other diners were watching. Some had their phones out recording. Tomorrow this would be all over social media. The CEO who couldn't pay his bill. I'll call my accountant, Andrew said desperately. I'll have the money wired. Sir, we need payment now or I'll have to call the police. Delilah's face went pale. Andrew! He wanted to scream, to flip the table, to burn the whole restaurant down. Instead, he called the only person who might help. Grace answered on the third ring. "What do you want, Andrew?" "Gracie, please, I need your help. Something's wrong with the accounts." "Nothing's wrong. Mom froze them. All of them." "You knew about this." "I arranged it." The restaurant fell away. Andrew clutched the phone like a lifeline. "You betrayed me." "No, Andrew. You betrayed Mom. You sent her to prison for a crime she didn't commit. You stole millions from the company. You destroyed our family. I just made sure you'd pay for it." "I'm your brother." "You were my brother." "That person died when you put Mom in that cage." Grace's voice was ice. "Enjoy your evening, Andrew. It's the last nice one you'll have for a very long time." She hung up. Andrew stood in Sterling's steakhouse, holding a dead phone, unable to pay an $850 bill, watching his life collapse in real time. The maitre d' was calling the police. Delilah was crying mascara running down her face. Other diners were still recording. 3 days later, Andrew stood outside the gates of the Highland Park mansion, his home for the past 2 years, with 3 suitcases and 2 duffel bags. Everything he and Delilah could prove they'd bought with their own money, which wasn't much. Most of their designer clothes, jewelry, electronics, all bought with Sterling Industries funds, all claimed by Charlotte's legal team. The moving truck that had emptied out their belongings was already gone. The gates were locked. New security code. Cameras at every corner. Andrew pressed the intercom. "This is Andrew Harper. I need to get my things." "This property belongs to Charlotte Harper." A security guard's voice came through. "You've been evicted. You're trespassing. Leave now or we'll call the police." Neighbors were watching from their windows. Some had their phones out recording. By nightfall, it would be all over Dallas social media. The CEO evicted from his own home. Except it had never been his home. It had always been his mother's. A black BMW pulled up. Grace stepped out wearing a navy pantsuit, sunglasses hiding her eyes. For a moment, Andrew felt hope. His sister had come to help. "Grace, thank God. Tell the security to let me in. I just need to get a few more things." Grace walked past him to the intercom. "This is Grace Harper. I'm here to inspect the property." The gates swung open immediately. Andrew tried to follow her through. A security guard stepped in his way. "Sir, you need to leave." "Grace," Andrew grabbed his sister's arm. "Please, talk to Mom. Tell her this is insane. I'm her son." Grace turned slowly, removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were cold, empty, like looking at a stranger. "You were her son," Grace said quietly. "That ended when you put her in prison for something she didn't do, when you stole from her company, when you chose Delilah and money over your own mother. I made mistakes. You made choices, and choices have consequences." She pulled her arm free. "I tried to tell you once that Mom was stronger than you thought. You should have listened." She walked through the gates. They closed behind her with electronic finality. Andrew stood on the wrong side of the iron bars looking at the house he'd lived in for 2 years. His mother's house. Delilah slumped against their pile of luggage, crying. "What are we going to do?" Andrew pulled out his phone, checked his bank balance. $180, that was all they had left. Room 204 at the Sunset Motel smelled like mildew and defeat. The air conditioner rattled, spitting lukewarm air that barely touched the Texas heat. The bedspread was stained. The carpet was threadbare. A cockroach scurried across the wall. This room cost $45 a night. 4 nights ago, Andrew had been living in a 6,000-square-foot mansion in Highland Park. Now he sat on a sagging mattress, counting cash for the 3rd time, hoping the number would somehow be different. 180, 4 nights at the Sunset Motel. That was it. Delilah emerged from the bathroom, her expensive hair now limp and unwashed. "I can't live like this. It's 90 degrees. There's no water pressure. There are cockroaches, Andrew." "Then leave." "With what money my accounts are frozen too." "Because you were stupid. You put everything in your name. The shell companies, the fake consulting firm, everything. You thought you were so clever." "Don't you dare blame me." Delilah's voice rose to a shriek. "You wanted your mother's company. You were the one who said if we could just get rid of her, everything would be ours." "I wanted her respect," Andrew shot back. "I wanted her to see that I could run Sterling Industries as well as Dad did. You're the one who turned it into this scheme to destroy her. Oh, please. You knew exactly what you were doing. You testified in court. You told them she pushed me. You sent your own mother to prison, and you didn't lose a minute of sleep over it because you were too busy spending her money. Andrew grabbed Delilah's arm. You killed that baby. Not Mom. You. With your illegal diet pills because you were so obsessed with being thin enough to fit into designer dresses. Delilah yanked her arm free. I made a mistake. I didn't know DNP was dangerous. You killed our child and then you blamed my mother for it. You threw yourself down those stairs. I saw you look at me first. I knew what you were going to do, and I didn't stop you. Silence filled the room except for the dripping faucet in the bathroom. Delilah sank onto the bed, knees pulled to her chest. So what do we do now? Andrew stared at the water-stained ceiling. I don't know. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. Grace. Part of him wanted to ignore it, but some desperate part still hoped his sister might help. Gracie. Andrew. Her voice was businesslike. I'm calling to inform you that the forensic audit found $4.2 million in fraudulent transfers. The district attorney is filing criminal charges tomorrow. Wire fraud, embezzlement, corporate malfeasance. Grace, please. You'll receive a formal notice in the morning. You should retain legal counsel. A pause. Though I don't know how you'll pay for one. I'm your brother. You were my brother. I told you that already. The person I called my brother would never have done what you did. That person is dead. Grace, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please just talk to Mom. Tell her I'll do anything. Work minimum wage. Live in a studio apartment. Just please don't let them arrest me. You made your choice, Andrew. Now live with it. The line went dead. Andrew threw his phone against the wall. It shattered. Delilah didn't even flinch. They sat in that motel room, two people who'd destroyed a family for money they'd never get to keep listening to the sound of their own breathing and the drip, drip, drip of the bathroom faucet. Outside, a police siren wailed in the distance, growing closer, then fading. But to both of them, it sounded like a funeral bell. The next morning, Andrew woke to his cheap burner phone, the only one he could afford, now vibrating violently. He'd given the number to only 3 people, his lawyer Gerald Thompson and a cousin in Austin who'd offered to loan him some money. But somehow it was blowing up. 47 missed calls. 63 text messages. He unlocked it with shaking hands. The first text was from his lawyer. Call me immediately. Do not talk to anyone else. JM. The second was from his cousin Dude. What the hell is this true, with a link to Twitter? Andrew clicked it. His blood turned to ice. Hashtag Justice for Yair Sarlet was trending. Number 1 in the United States. The top tweet was from an account called @TruthRevealed. Medical records prove Delilah Harper's baby died before Charlotte Harper allegedly pushed her. Full documents below. This woman destroyed a family for money. Attached was the medical report from Mercy General Hospital. Date September 23, 2024. 11:45 p.m. Diagnosis spontaneous, incomplete abortion, secondary to DNP toxicity, September 23rd, 2 days before the fall. The comments section was brutal. She lied about the baby dying from the fall. It was already dead. Charlotte Harper is innocent. This is disgusting. That son testified against his own mother knowing she was innocent. What kind of monster does that? The daughter-in-law took illegal diet pills and killed her own baby, then blamed the grandmother. Evil. Andrew scrolled frantically. Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, Facebook. The entire internet had turned against them overnight. Videos of his mother at the press conference yesterday announcing the investigation. Her voice strong, her eyes hard. A woman who'd survived prison and come out swinging. Compared to videos of him and Delilah at the prison release, looking smug and entitled as Charlotte walked past them. The contrast was damning. Someone had made a side-by-side comparison, left side Charlotte in prison clothes, thin and worn, but with dignity. Right side Andrew and Delilah at an expensive restaurant, laughing, toasting champagne. Caption, while she was in prison for a crime she didn't commit, they were spending her money. It had 8 million views. Delilah stirred in the bed beside him. Andrew, what's wrong? He showed her his phone. She went white. Grabbed her own phone, also a burner, the only thing they could afford. Her social media accounts had been flooded. Thousands of messages, all of them hateful. You're a monster. You killed your own baby and blamed an innocent woman. You deserve prison. I hope you rot in hell. Her Instagram stories from the past 2 years, designer clothes, expensive restaurants, luxury vacations had been screenshot and shared everywhere. This is what she was doing while Charlotte Harper was in prison for a crime she didn't commit. Delilah started crying. Real tears this time, not the crocodile tears she'd shed in court. They all hate us. Everyone hates us. Andrew couldn't comfort her, could barely process what was happening. His phone rang. His lawyer. Jeremy, don't say anything. The medical records are real. I checked with the hospital. Sarah Kim, the attending physician who treated Delilah that night, confirmed everything. How did they get the records? Dr. Kim released them. She was fired after your trial for questioning the official story. She's been waiting 2 years for a chance to clear Charlotte Harper's name. Your wife's legal team found her, and she agreed to go public under whistleblower protection. Your wife, not your mother. The lawyer had already chosen sides. What do we do? I'm withdrawing from your case. I can't represent you any more. Conflict of interest. The DA is filing charges this afternoon. Wire fraud, embezzlement, perjury, conspiracy to obstruct justice. You're looking at 15 to 20 years. Jeremy, please. I'm sorry, Andrew. You're on your own. The line went dead. Andrew sat on the edge of the motel bed, head in his hands. 3 days ago, he'd been CEO of a $70 million company. Now he had $130 to his name, a criminal investigation, and the entire internet calling for his head. Delilah's phone rang. She answered, hope in her eyes. Hello? Then her face crumbled. Yes, I understand. She hung up. Who is that? My lawyer. She's dropping me too. Says the medical records make my case unwinnable. Delilah looked at Andrew with hollow eyes. Did you know about the miscarriage before the fall? Andrew couldn't lie anymore. I suspected. You suspected. Her voice was flat. You knew the baby was already dead when I threw myself down those stairs, and you let me do it anyway. You wanted to do it. You said it was our only chance to get rid of her. Because you told me your mother would never give up the company. You told me the only way we'd ever have anything was if we got her out of the way. They stared at each other, 2 people who'd destroyed everything for nothing. What happens now? Delilah whispered. Andrew's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The truth always surfaces. Your mother sends her regards. He showed it to Delilah. She started laughing, high-pitched, hysterical. We're ruined, completely ruined, and she did it without lifting a finger. Andrew closed his eyes. His mother had won, and the war had only just begun. 1 week after my release from prison, I sat at the head of the Sterling Industries boardroom table for the first time in over 2 years. The marble table gleamed under LED lighting. 8 board members sat in leather chairs watching me with expressions ranging from sympathy to uncertainty. Behind me stood Marcus Reed with his laptop and Beatrice Walsh with her files. This was my empire, the company I'd built from nothing, and I was taking it back. Good morning, my voice was steady, controlled. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Richard Garrett, who'd been on the board since the beginning, spoke first. Charlotte, it's good to have you back. We've had concerns about the direction of the company. I'm sure you have. I pressed a button on the remote. The wall screen lit up behind me. During Andrew Harper's tenure as acting CEO, net profits fell 40%. Company debt increased by 200%. But most interesting, Marcus clicked his laptop. The screen filled with a graph showing money flowing out of Sterling Industries like blood from a wound. $4.2 million disappeared from various accounts over 24 months. Murmurs rippled around the table. Where did it go? Patricia Chen, our newest board member, asked. Marcus clicked again. Bank transfers appeared. Shell companies, fake invoices, a web of financial deception. Lux Consulting LLC, $1.5 million for design services that never happened. Owned by Delilah Harper. Click. Morrison Advisory Group, $800,000 for strategic consulting. Another shell company also owned by Delilah Harper. Click. Sterling Development Partners, $900,000. You see the pattern? My God, Richard breathed. Andrew was stealing from us the whole time. Not just stealing, systematically looting. I stood, placing my hands on the table. But what concerns me more is this. Marcus brought up a new document. Payment records. $75,000 to Judge Morrison's offshore account. Paid 2 weeks before my trial. The room went silent. Andrew bribed the judge. Patricia's face went pale. And paid $50,000 to the security technician who lost the footage showing what really happened that day. I looked at each board member. My son sent me to prison knowing I was innocent. He stole from this company. He corrupted the legal system. And he did it all for money. The doors burst open. Andrew stumbled in, no security able to stop him in time. He looked terrible. Jeans wrinkled, t-shirt stained, 3 days of stubble, hair unwashed, eyes wild with desperation. This wasn't the polished CEO who'd sat at this table 2 years ago. This was a man who'd spent 3 nights in a $45 motel room watching his life collapse on social media. This meeting is invalid, Andrew's voice cracked. I'm still the legal CEO. You're nothing. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. You're a thief who lived off stolen money. Security, please remove. It was business diversification, Andrew shouted. The company needed an honest CEO, not an embezzler. Marcus stood his voice sharp. You're facing federal charges, Mr. Harper. Wire fraud, corporate malfeasance, perjury. I suggest you save what little dignity you have left and leave. Andrew's eyes found mine. For a moment I saw my son, the little boy who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers. The teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when his father died. Then I remembered 2 years in a cell, 2 years of being called a murderer, 2 years of missing my life while he lived in my house and spent my money. The moment of weakness passed. As holder of 70% voting shares, I said clearly, I move to dismiss Andrew Harper as CEO effective immediately. Dishonorable discharge, no severance, no benefits. Criminal charges to be pursued to the fullest extent of the law. Andrew's face went white. 70%, you need 51% minimum to vote me out. You can't do this alone. You're right, I need 51%. I have 70. But let's make this unanimous, shall we? I looked toward the doors. Marcus, please invite our final board member. The doors opened. Grace Harper walked in. White suit, hair pulled back in a severe bun, leather portfolio, heels clicking with perfect precision. Every eye turned to her. Andrew's face transformed anger, melting into confusion, then hope. Grace, relief flooded his voice. Thank God you're here. Tell them this is insane. Tell them. Grace walked past him. Not around him. Past him, like he was a piece of furniture that didn't deserve acknowledgement. She took her seat at the table beside me. Andrew's smile died on his face. Grace, his voice cracked. I spoke my voice carrying through the silent room. Ladies and gentlemen, Grace Harper, holder of 30% of Sterling Industries shares inherited from her mother, Elizabeth Harper's private trust. Andrew staggered backward. What, Mom's shares? I thought those were dissolved when she died. You thought wrong. Grace opened her portfolio, pulling out a thick file. Mother's will specified that her shares would go to me and Dad with the stipulation that you would inherit only after proving yourself as an ethical leader. Her voice was cold, professional, showing no emotion, but I could see her hands trembling slightly as she held the file. For 2 years, Grace continued, I documented everything you did, every transaction, every fake invoice, every bribe, every lie. Andrew grabbed the back of a chair for support. You were helping Mom all along. When you visited the prison, when you acted like you'd turned your back on her. Grace's mask cracked just slightly. When she spoke, her voice shook. I had to stand in that visitation room and call our mother unstable. I had to listen to you and Delilah plan how to keep her in prison longer if she didn't cooperate. I had to attend your dinners and smile while you talked about redecorating her house. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I had to pretend to be your ally while you destroyed our mother. Do you know what that cost me? Every night I went home and threw up. Every visit to that prison I had to look in Mom's eyes and act like I'd abandoned her. Her voice rose, no longer controlled. I documented everything. Every email you sent me. Every document you asked me to file. Every conversation where you admitted what you'd done. She pulled papers from the file, scattering them across the table. Judge Morrison's bribe. Right here. Copies of the checks you signed. Another stack. Payments to James Mitchell, the security tech. I have his signed confession. Another stack. The shell companies. Lux Consulting, Morrison Advisory, Sterling Development, all registered to Delilah within 30 days of Mom's conviction. Andrew looked around wildly. At the board members' disgusted faces. At Marcus's satisfaction. At my cold stare. At Grace's tears. You betrayed me. he whispered. Your own brother. I saved our mother. Grace slammed her hands on the table, standing. You sent an innocent woman to prison. You lived in her house. You stole from her company. You destroyed her reputation. She was crying openly now, but her voice never wavered. You had everything, Andrew. Mom would have made you CEO eventually. Dad left you his watch, his books, his legacy. I got Mom's shares because you got everything else. But you couldn't wait. You couldn't earn it. You had to steal it. She pulled out more papers. Her hands were shaking so badly the papers rustled. I have recordings of you admitting to the embezzlement. I have emails where you discussed bribing the judge. I have text messages between you and Delilah, planning how to frame Mom. She threw them at Andrew. Papers fluttered through the air like damning snow. I have everything, and I gave it all to the FBI. Andrew's legs gave out. He sank into a chair. Grace, please. You were my brother. Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. I loved you. I looked up to you. When Dad died, you became the man of the family. You were supposed to protect us. Protect Mom. She wiped her eyes, smearing mascara. Instead, you destroyed her. For what money you couldn't even keep, a company you ran into the ground, the approval of a woman who manipulated you from day one. Andrew couldn't speak, just sat there broken. Grace turned to the board, composed herself with visible effort. I vote yes to dismiss Andrew Harper and pursue full criminal prosecution. I nodded. All in favor. 8 hands rose around the table. I. Unanimous. I looked at Andrew. My firstborn. My son. The baby I'd held 35 years ago, promising to always protect him. Security. 2 officers in suits stepped forward. No, Andrew whispered. Grace, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Grace turned her chair toward the window. Her shoulders trembled, but she wouldn't look at him. Grace, Andrew's voice broke. Grace, please. The security officers pulled him toward the door. He fought, reaching toward his sister. I'm sorry I was wrong. Please don't do this, Grace, Mom. I met his eyes as the officers dragged him past. Saw the moment he realized this was really happening. His mother wasn't going to save him. His sister wasn't going to forgive him. He was alone. The door closed. The lock clicked. Silence filled the boardroom. Grace still faced the window, crying silently. I stood and walked to her, placed my hand on her shoulder. You did the right thing, sweetheart. It doesn't feel right. Her voice was small. It feels like I just destroyed my brother. You didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. You just made sure he couldn't destroy anyone else. The board members quietly gathered their things and left, giving us privacy. When they were gone, Grace turned and collapsed into my arms. I hated every second, she sobbed. Every visit to prison, every dinner with them, every time I had to pretend I didn't care about you. I hated it, Mom. I held her tight, stroking her hair like I'd done when she was little. I know, baby. I know. Did I do the right thing? You saved me. You saved the company. You did what needed to be done. But he's my brother. I know. I pulled back, cupping her face. And that makes what you did even braver. You chose the hard right over the easy wrong. You chose justice over family loyalty. That takes strength most people will never have. Grace leaned her head on my shoulder. We stood there, mother and daughter, looking out over Dallas. 2 women who'd survived betrayal, who'd fought back, who'd won. But the war wasn't over yet. Grace and I sat in the penthouse that evening. She'd brought Chinese takeout, my first real food in 2 years that wasn't prison slop or fancy hotel meals. Kung Pao chicken, she said, unpacking containers. Your favorite. I took a bite and nearly cried. God, I missed this. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Grace spoke quietly. I visit him sometimes. Andrew, did you know? My chopsticks stopped halfway to my mouth. What, once a month at the county jail? He's awaiting trial. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't talk much, just sit there. Tell him about the company, about you, about my life. I set down my food. Why? Because you taught me that family means never completely giving up. Remember when I was 16 and got caught shoplifting? Everyone wanted you to let the judge throw the book at me, teach me a lesson. I remembered. Grace had fallen in with the wrong crowd trying to impress some boy. But you didn't. You stood by me, got me counseling, helped me understand why I'd made that choice. You gave me a second chance even when I didn't deserve it. That was different. Was it? Grace looked at me. You told me then, people aren't defined by their worst moment. They're defined by what they do after. So I visit Andrew, not to forgive him, not to excuse what he did, but to remind him that somewhere someone still believes he could be better than his worst choice. I was quiet for a long moment. You're a better person than I am. I learned from the best. She smiled sadly. He's different now, Mom. In jail. Quieter. He doesn't make excuses anymore. Last time I visited, he told me he's been reading Dad's old journals, the ones you gave him. My breath caught. Michael's journals. Andrew said something Dad wrote really stuck with him. A Harper faces what he's done. We don't run. We don't hide. We own our mistakes and do better. I felt tears building. Michael would have been heartbroken by what Andrew did, but he also would have wanted his son to find redemption. What else did Andrew say? That he's going to testify, tell the whole truth, plead guilty, accept whatever sentence they give him. Grace's eyes were wet. He said he can't undo the past, but he can stop lying about it. I didn't know what to say. I'm not asking you to forgive him, Grace said quickly. I know I have no right, but I thought you should know. Thank you for telling me. We finished our dinner quietly, but something had shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe eventually the possibility of it. 3 months later, I sat in the George L. Allen Courts building in downtown Dallas. The courtroom was packed with reporters, onlookers, and people from Sterling Industries. I sat in the front row, gray suit pressed spine straight. Grace sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine. On the defendant's bench, Andrew sat in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. 2 seats away sat Delilah, looking hollow and thin. They didn't look at each other, hadn't spoken since the night in the motel when they'd turned on each other. Judge Marion Kellerman entered. The room rose. The prosecution called witnesses one by one. Dr. Sarah Kim testified about Delilah's miscarriage 2 days before the fall, about the DNP in her system, about being fired for trying to tell the truth. The forensic accountant detailed every stolen dollar, every fake company, every fraudulent invoice. James Mitchell, the security technician, admitted Andrew had paid him $50,000 to lose footage and say the baby died from traumatic injury. Then the prosecution called Grace. My daughter walked to the witness stand head high. She'd lost weight over the past months. The stress of betraying her brother, even to save her mother, had taken its toll. Miss Harper, the prosecutor began gently, you spent 2 years gathering evidence against your own brother. Why? Grace's voice was steady. Because he sent my mother to prison for something she didn't do. Because he stole from our family's company. Because someone had to stop him. At what cost to yourself? Tears formed in Grace's eyes. I had to pretend to hate my mother, visit her in prison and call her unstable, watch my brother destroy everything she'd built, and I had to smile, collect evidence, wait. Why not go to the police immediately? I had suspicions but no proof. Andrew was careful. I needed concrete evidence. That took time. The defense attorney, a public defender who looked overworked, stood. Miss Harper, isn't it true you wanted Sterling Industries for yourself? Grace met his eyes. I already had 30% of the company from my mother's trust. I didn't need to frame anyone. I just needed to expose the truth. When Grace stepped down, she walked past Andrew's table. For just a second, their eyes met. Andrew mouthed, I'm sorry. Grace paused, then continued to her seat without responding. Then something unexpected happened. Andrew's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client wishes to testify. Shock rippled through the courtroom. Defendants rarely testify in criminal trials. Too risky. But Andrew took the stand. His own lawyer questioned him. Mr. Harper, did you embezzle from Sterling Industries? Yes. Andrew's voice was quiet but clear. Gasps from the gallery. Did you know Delilah Harper's baby had died before the alleged fall? Andrew paused, looked at his mother across the courtroom for the first time. Our eyes met. Not at first, he said slowly, but I suspected. And when I found out for certain after the trial started, I didn't come forward. I let the lie continue because I wanted the company. His voice broke. I wanted to prove I was as good as my father, better than everyone's expectations. and I destroyed the one person who loved me enough to believe I could be. He turned to the judge. I'm guilty, Your Honor, of everything. Embezzlement, wire fraud, perjury, conspiracy, all of it. I knew my mother was innocent. I saw Delilah step backward, but I testified anyway. Tears ran down his face now. I don't deserve mercy. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I can stop lying. I can tell the truth. That's all I have left. The courtroom was silent. Judge Kellerman's voice was steel. Mr. Andrew Harper, you have been found guilty of embezzlement, wire fraud, bribery, perjury, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Your confession today, while noted, does not absolve you of these crimes. She looked at him over her glasses. You betrayed your mother. You corrupted the justice system. You stole from a company built by people who trusted you. The court sentences you to 15 years in Texas State Penitentiary without eligibility for early parole. Andrew's head dropped. He nodded slowly. I understand. Mrs. Delilah Harper. The judge turned to Delilah. While you cooperated with some aspects of this investigation, your role in framing an innocent woman cannot be overlooked. The court sentences you to 12 years in state prison. Delilah stared at her hands. No tears, just emptiness. The bailiffs came forward. As they led Andrew away, he turned back once. His eyes found mine. I looked at him, really looked at my son. Not with hate, not with love the way it used to be, but with something in between. Sadness, loss, and perhaps very distantly the faint possibility that someday, after 15 years of paying for what he'd done, there might be a conversation. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but acknowledgement that he was still my son, even if I couldn't be his mother anymore. Andrew seemed to understand. He nodded once. Then they took him away. The Texas sun blazed overhead as Grace and I stood on the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions, but Marcus and Beatrice kept them back. Grace turned to me, her eyes wet. Mom, is it really over? I pulled her into my arms. And for the first time in 2 years, I let myself break down completely. Deep shaking sobs that came from 2 years of holding everything together. 2 years of being strong in prison. 2 years of my daughter's secret sacrifice. You gave up everything for me, I choked out. 2 years of pretending to hate me. 2 years of being alone. I was never alone. Grace held me tighter. I had you, even when I couldn't show it. Even when I had to say terrible things. I knew you understood. I knew you saw the truth in my eyes. I pulled back, cupping her face. How did you keep going? I remembered what you told me when Dad died. We're Harpers. We don't break. We bend. We adapt. We survive. And we come back stronger. She smiled through tears. You taught me that, so I used it to save you. Behind us, Marcus and Beatrice stood quietly, giving us this moment, this sacred space of mother and daughter who'd survived hell together. What now? Grace asked softly. I looked at Dallas spread out below us. My city, my company, my life, reclaimed. Now, I took a deep breath. Now we rebuild, better than before, stronger, together. The Sterling Industries annual gala at the Dallas Convention Center was packed with 500 guests. I stood at the podium in an emerald gown, my gray hair styled elegantly. At 66 years old, I'd never felt more powerful. 3 years ago, I began, I lost everything. My freedom, my reputation, my family. The room was silent, listening. But I learned something in that cell at Dallas County Jail. You can take away a woman's money, her home, her name, but you can't take away her strength, her intelligence, her will to survive. I looked at Grace sitting at the head table beaming with pride. Today, Sterling Industries has recovered 200%. We've hired 50 formerly incarcerated individuals through our Second Chances program. We've donated $10 million to the Innocence Project, and we're led by the most brilliant, ethical, fierce CEO I've ever known. Applause filled the room. I'm officially retiring next month, fully stepping down, and I'm leaving this company in the hands of my daughter, Grace Harper. Standing ovation. Grace joined me at the podium. We embraced as cameras flashed. I'm so proud of you, I whispered. I learned from the best, she whispered back. Later, I stepped outside for air. The Dallas night was beautiful stars visible despite the city lights. Marcus Reed found me there. Quite a speech, he said. I meant every word. You did it, Charlotte. You won. Did I? I looked at the city skyline. I lost a son. You lost someone who chose to betray you. You kept someone who would die for you. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Grace told me she still visits Andrew. Once a month, like clockwork. I smiled sadly. She's more forgiving than I am. Forgiveness isn't weakness. I know, but I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. Marcus nodded. That's okay. You're allowed to still hurt. We stood in comfortable silence. Inside, I could hear Grace laughing at something Betty said, my former cellmate, now Sterling Industries prisoner advocacy coordinator. The future was bright. The past was complicated. But I was free. Truly free. Not just from prison, but from the need to be perfect. To have all the answers. To fix everything. Some things stay broken, and that's okay. Late that night, alone in my Highland Park home, my home again, I sat at Michael's old desk. I pulled out a sheet of paper and began to write. Not to Andrew. I'd said everything I needed to say to him, but to myself. The woman I was 3 years ago before everything fell apart. Dear Charlotte, before you're about to lose everything, your son will betray you. You'll spend 2 years in a cell that smells like despair. You'll question everything about yourself, your parenting, your choices, your worth as a mother. But I'm writing from the other side to tell you something important. You survive. More than survive, you discover who you really are when everything else is stripped away. You'll find out that Grace is stronger than you ever imagined, that she'll sacrifice 2 years of her life pretending to hate you to save you. You'll learn that some family is born, some is chosen, and both are valid. You'll discover that power doesn't come from money or titles. It comes from character, from refusing to break, from standing up even when everyone wants you to stay down. Andrew's betrayal will feel like death, and in some ways it is. The son you knew died the day he chose greed over family. But maybe, and this is the hardest part, maybe in 15 years after he's paid for what he did, there could be something new. Not the old relationship, that's dead and buried, but perhaps an acknowledgement, a conversation, a recognition that people can be both the worst thing they've ever done and the potential to be better. You were a good mother. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. You raised Grace. That alone proves you did something right. Andrew's choices are his own. You gave him the same love, the same values, the same foundation. He chose differently. That's not your failure. That's his journey. Your burden now is to live, fully, joyfully, to build something beautiful with Grace, to help other women who've been wronged, to show the world that being torn down doesn't mean staying down. You're 66 years old. You have years ahead. Good years. Use them wisely. Love fiercely. Fight hard. And never ever let anyone make you feel small again. With love and hard-won wisdom, Charlotte. After I folded the letter carefully, placed it in my journal next to Michael's old wedding photo. Tomorrow would start my first day of retirement. Grace was taking over completely. But I wasn't disappearing. I was beginning again. Different. Scarred. Wiser. But unbreakable. 6 months after the trial, I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I drove to Texas State Penitentiary. The same type of building I'd been in. Different location, but the same smell. Same sounds. Same weight of incarceration pressing down on everything. Grace had asked me to come. Just once. To hear what Andrew had to say. I almost refused. But Grace had given me 2 years of her life. I could give her 1 hour. The visitation room was familiar. Plexiglass, phones, separation. Andrew appeared on the other side. He looked different, thinner. Prison had carved away the softness. His hair was shorter, graying at the temples. His eyes were clearer but sadder, older. He picked up the phone. I picked up mine. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Thank you for coming." I said nothing. Just looked at him. "I know I don't have the right to ask anything from you. I know what I did was—" He stopped, shook his head. "There aren't words for what I did. I destroyed you. For money I never got to keep. For a company I ran into the ground. For approval from a woman who never really loved me." His eyes filled. "I've had 14 months to think about it. Every day. What I did to you. The 2 years you spent in a place like this because I lied, because I was weak, because I wanted to be someone I wasn't. Why are you telling me this? My voice was cold. Because Dad's journals, the ones you gave me years ago, Grace brought them to me, and I've been reading them, over and over. He pulled out a piece of paper, a quote written in his handwriting. Dad wrote this the year before he died. The measure of a man isn't his success. It's how he handles failure. Does he blame others? Or does he own his mistakes and do better? Andrew's voice shook. I've spent my whole life blaming everyone else. You for comparing me to Dad. Delilah for manipulating me. The company for not appreciating me. But the truth is I made my choices. Every single one. And I have to own that. He met my eyes. So I'm owning it. I confessed. I'm serving my time. And when I get out in 13 years, if you're still alive, if you're still willing, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you and Dad tried to raise me to be. Tears ran down his face now. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not because I'm in here, but because I hurt you. I sat silent for a long moment, watching my son cry behind plexiglass. Part of me wanted to hang up, walk away, never come back. But another part, the part that had carried him for 9 months, raised him for 18 years, loved him for 35, that part couldn't quite let go. Do you understand what you took from me? My voice was quiet, dangerous. 2 years of your life. More than that, you took my ability to trust, to believe that the people I love won't destroy me. You took my faith in family, in the basic goodness of humanity. I leaned forward. You made me doubt myself as a mother. Every single day in that cell, I asked myself, where did I go wrong? What did I do to raise a son who could do this to me? Andrew's face crumpled. I'm sorry. Let me finish. My voice sharpened. I blamed myself for years. Thought I'd been too hard on you, too soft, too focused on the company, not focused enough. Every possible failure as a mother, I claimed it. I paused. But then I looked at Grace. Same mother, same values, same upbringing. And she chose differently. She chose to fight for what was right even when it cost her everything. I leaned back. So I realized it wasn't my failure. It was your choice. You chose greed. You chose the easy path. You chose to destroy rather than build. Andrew nodded, crying openly now. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life living with that choice. We sat in silence. Then I did something I didn't plan to do. I placed my hand on the plexiglass. After a moment, Andrew placed his hand opposite mine. Not touching. We'd never touch again, probably, but connected by something. Blood, history, the complicated mess that is family. I can't forgive you, I said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did was too big, hurt too much. I understand. But, I took a shaky breath. In 13 years when you get out, if you've used this time to actually become better, maybe we can have coffee, just coffee, and talk, like two people who used to be mother and son trying to figure out if there's anything left to build. Andrew's eyes widened. Really? I'm not promising anything. I'm not saying everything will be okay, but I'm saying the door isn't completely closed. It's mostly closed. Locked, actually. But there's a crack of light at the bottom. Fresh tears spilled down Andrew's face. Thank you. Mom, thank you. I don't deserve... You're right. You don't. But Grace taught me something about second chances, about how people aren't defined by their worst moment. So I'm willing to see in 13 years if you can be defined by what you do after. I stood slowly. Goodbye, Andrew. Not see you next time, but not forever either. Just goodbye for now. Andrew stood too. Goodbye, Mom. Thank you for coming, for giving me even this much. I hung up the phone and walked toward the exit. At the door, I turned back once. Andrew stood by the glass hand still pressed where mine had been, head bowed. I whispered, though he couldn't hear, You'll always be my son. I just don't know if I can ever be your mother again. Then I walked out into the Texas sun, into my new life, leaving the past behind, but not completely closed, just possible. I stood on the balcony of my Highland Park home watching the sunrise over Dallas. 68 years old, retired from Sterling Industries, free from the weight of the past. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace board meeting went great. We're up 47% this quarter. You'd be proud. Miss you. Gee, I smiled and texted back, always proud of you, sweetheart. Another text appeared. From Betty Hay, boss lady. Just placed our 100th formerly incarcerated woman in a job through second chances. Remember when we were counting days in that cell? Look at us now. I laughed and replied, we've come a long way, haven't we? The sun rose higher, golden light spilling over the city. I thought about Andrew serving his time. Grace visited him monthly still. She said he was different, quieter, focused on education programs helping other inmates. Maybe it was real. Maybe it was performance. Time would tell. 11 years left on his sentence. Maybe in 11 years we'd have that coffee. Maybe we wouldn't. Either way, I'd survived. More than survived. I'd rebuilt. Stronger, wiser, freer. The doorbell rang. I went downstairs. Marcus and Beatrice stood there holding coffee and pastries. Thought you might want company for breakfast, Marcus said. Always. I let them in. This was my family now, the one I'd chosen. Grace, Marcus, Beatrice, Betty, the women from Second Chances. And somewhere locked behind bars, a son who might someday find his way back to being human. But that was his journey.